Welcome back, Patriots. This is Mr. Love, aka the Math Patriot, bringing you another fun and exciting lesson in the world of high school geometry. We're moving on to new sections and segments in circles. We're going to be talking about secants, tangents, and how their angles interact with each other. So, let's first off start by talking about what a secant line is. Now, we talked about tangents the other day. A tangent was where I had a circle and then it comes across and hits just barely one time. There is my tangent line. Now, a secant is a line that intersects a circle two times. So over here on this bottom left-hand circle over here, I got the secant line intersects twice. So J is a secant because it touches twice. Now, whenever my lines intersect inside, I'm going to have these two angles right here. And the thing that I'm worried about today is how do these angles, which are labeled as here as angle 1, how does the measure of that angle, how does that interact with and how does it relate to the intercepted arcs over here, arc X and arc Y? And there's a fairly simple relationship between angle 1, the measure of arc X, and the measure of arc Y. So here we go. You can read all that if you really want to. I'll give you a second to do that, or you can always pause the video. But here is the long and short of it. Whenever two secants intersect inside the circle, angle 1 is equal to the average of arc X and arc Y. So just add arc X and arc Y together and then divide by 2, and you've got the measure of angle 1. Let's show what that actually looks like here. So X is going to equal 1/2 times, since X is the angle here, is going to equal half of the two intercepted arcs added together. So just 76 plus 88. So whenever I go through, that gives me X equals 1/2 times 76 plus 88 is 164. Now when I take that 164 and divide that by 2, I get that X equals 82 degrees. There we go. It's that simple. Moving on to example 2. This one throws students off sometimes because they want to just go in there and say that X is equal to 1/2 of 62 plus 96. But the problem is, remember the way this whole thing was set up. Let me jump back up here. Angle 1 is the arc or the angle that opens up onto the arc. Okay, then this vertical angle opens up onto X. Notice it is not this angle over here. That's the situation that I've got here on example 2. The property of the average actually applies to this angle, VZW. I'm going to call that Y just so that I have a variable there. So I know that Y is equal to 1/2 times 62 plus 96. Then that gives me 1/2 is equal to 62 plus 96 is 158. Then I divide that 158 by 2, and I get that Y is equal to 79 degrees. Now, when I want to find the measure of angle X, I know that X is just equal to 180 minus 79 degrees. So X is equal to 101 degrees. So same property, just one extra step. Just be very, very careful of looking at which angle you're given in this section right here, and make sure that you're always using the angle that opens up onto the two intercepted arcs and not one of the others. Now, if I want to find one of the arcs as opposed to the angle, we're still going to use the exact same formula. It's just that our variable is going to end up in a different location. So here, our angle of 60 degrees equals 1/2 times the sum of the arcs. So that's x plus 25. You see, since x ended up in the arc position, it ends up in the arc position on the formula. Now let's go ahead and distribute that 1/2. 60 equals 1/2 x, because we had to multiply here and then there, plus 12.5. 1/2 times 25 is 12.5. Now let's subtract that. 60 minus 12.5 is 47.5 is equal to 1/2 x. And now, multiplying by 1/2, the way I get rid of that is by multiplying both sides times 2. That's going to give me x equals 2 times 47.5 equals 95 degrees. All right, next style of problem we're going to get into now is when, oh, by the way, just so you know, the thing we're actually talking about right now is this picture over here on the right. This one is one that we covered back when we did intercepted arcs. Intercepted arcs and inscribed angles. Now, you'll remember that when we covered this, we talked about how the idea that angle 1 was exactly 1/2 of x. The intercepted arc was exactly double the inscribed angle. So if this one was 100 degrees, then angle 1 is 50 degrees. We got the exact same logic going here, that if angle 1 is 80 degrees, then x is 160 degrees. Okay, that's the exact, all the stuff that we did. Now, what you got to understand is that this one was formed, the one we talked about before, with two secants. We didn't label them secants at the time, or we did it with chords, I believe. But the same property applies over here on the right, where we're talking about a secant, which is this one going in the upwards direction, along with a tangent. So here, 1 is still exactly half of x. The same property applies even though it's a tangent and not a secant. So once again, if x is 90 degrees, then angle 1 is 45 degrees, and so on. Nothing different about it, it just looks slightly different. So let's find the measure of y. Well, y is just going to be 1/2 of 168. So half of 168 is just 84 degrees. Simple enough. Now, measure of angle QPS means that I want QPS is this angle. Looks like it's formed by a secant line PS and a tangent line QP. And then we've got our intercepted arc here. So I'm going to go ahead and call that an x so that I have a variable there. X is equal to 1/2 times 250. Well, x equals 1/2 times 250 is just 125 degrees. So to write it properly, measure of angle QPS is equal to 125 degrees. There we go. Once again, simple enough. Number 6, and yes, this is our last example. We want to find the measure of arc BCD. And I apologize, that's actually like it doesn't look like an actual arc symbol. That's the best I could do with the font I was using. So it's arc BCD. So BCD is this arc over here. I'm going to label that arc as X. But the property of the intercepted arc and the inscribed angle does not apply to this one over here. It only applies to the intercepted arc, which is this this one, arc D. I need another one to label it DEB. So I'm going to go ahead and put a Y there, and then we'll use that to come back in and find X later. So 108 is equal to 1/2 of Y. So we just multiply 108 times 2 and we get 216. Then to find X, we're just going to subtract, since there's only 2 arcs in this entire circle, we know that X plus Y has got to equal 360. So 360, well, I'm sorry, X equals 360 minus Y, which is 216. Therefore, X is 144 degrees. Well, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Probably one of the shortest lessons I've ever put out, only 11 minutes long. Guys, take care. As always, stay patriotic.